be handing over to our moderator, and I'll just reiterate that topic again so that I do not have it muddled up. Thank you so much. Tourism transformed. Tourism transformed. I'm quite excited to hear what this transformed part means in this title, where travel meets real estate investment in South Africa. Now, our moderator for this is Kojo Bentum-Williams, somebody I've known for many, many years as well from tourism, and he'll be joined by Marcel van Aulock. Am I saying it right? Van Aulock, and he's the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Director for Southern Sun. A round of applause, please, as the gents make their way to stage.
Thank you, Tommy.
It's an absolute pleasure, brother.
Yep.
Over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. And I've always wondered and said that I'm always put in 1,600, 1,700 times to moderate, and that's not really a very good time. So when you get people turn up like this, we need to give them a round of applause. Can you applaud for yourself to be here? Right, I have only 20 minutes, and I have with me Marcel, as she's introduced. And what we're going to look at is to look at how tourism is fueling the investment in real estate. And for him, he's been there for over 30 years. Please, can you introduce yourself a bit to the audience?
Hi, yeah. So my name's Marcel. I'm the CEO of Southern Sun. We are the largest hotel group in the country. We have about a third of the formal hotel stock, if you exclude non-branded stuff and so on. And a long legacy. I mean, this was a group founded in '69 by Kersner in a joint venture with breweries. We've been through many iterations. We've had casinos. We've built casinos twice. Out of our group came Sun International, Soho, City Lodge, the whole katoot. So it's got a long history in the industry. I've been there about 25 years. I've based my whole career. I've started articles there and I've never left. And we do have a bit of a unique insight into, we're different to the brands you see above me in that we own the vast majority of our real estate. So we have a 17-odd billion rand pure hotel portfolio, which we own outright, and then we do manage for third parties as well. But we are different in that we actually own the hard assets. I guess the City Lodge is similar to us, but much smaller, obviously.
Great, and I think that as one of the leading hotels, not just in South Africa, Southern Africa, you're in the best position to tell us how it's influencing investment in the real estate. Now, with South Africa looking at 15 million tourists by 2030, I personally think that it could be more. Do you think that you have enough capacity, or is something that is influencing how you are projecting to expand to meet this goal?
Yeah, so it's if that goal was met, we are vastly under-resourced in terms of hotel stock, in terms of just about every tourism asset that there is. However, that goal has not been met in decades. This is an industry that has been in perpetual oversupply for as long as I've been in it. The differences are sort of small moments of joy like you've got in Cape Town at the moment. But if they don't double their tourism, a couple of thousand rooms in Cape Town and you'll be in a vast oversupply position. So what you find is a very big disconnect between parties that actually own, I'll talk hotels specifically as opposed to other real estate, parties that actually own the real estate versus management companies that obviously want to sign up contracts but don't write the check that goes in. And there's two reasons for that. One, as much as what the rates in Cape Town have recovered substantially in the last 2 years, and they are at levels that I've not seen before, it's still hard to justify new build cost. We have a small investment in a UK hotel business, and the difference in the UK is when you open the hotel, it's worth more than what it cost you to build. That's the reward for going through the planning process and the traumas and the difficulty of getting a hotel done. Generally here, if you open a new build hotel, it's worth half what you've just paid to build it. So we've done really well out of buying assets. There's a long-standing South African joke that the third owner makes the money. And Cape Town is a really shining example of the good work done by the city, by Westgrow, that has pushed forward that they are in an area where they're almost at balance, where you can start looking at new builds, and it's not a total stretch of the imagination that you're going to earn a half-decent return. But the rest of South Africa is not like that. And this Cape Town boom is very much a post-COVID thing, because the pre-COVID room rates were substantially below what they are now. So tourism is definitely going to drive, or has the ability to drive the real estate, but South Africa is quite far behind on the number of tourism, on the numbers that they should be achieving. And we actually haven't recovered to pre-COVID levels. So there's a gap here that nobody wants to see. And I mean, stop me if I'm rambling a bit, but what we are finding is that the number of real investors in hotel real estate is limited to companies like ourselves who are here, and it's what we do. We don't have a lot of other choice, but we're putting the vast majority of our money into renovation of existing products, so we've got sunk cost. Or your property development companies, because they're stuck with bulk that they can't, there isn't enough demand for offices, there isn't enough demand for other uses, and they're defaulting into hotel stock. So I'm a little bit nervous of Cape Town going from the golden child it is now into an oversupplied position quite quickly, because people are going to overbuild. So if Westgrow doesn't continue to grow the tourism numbers, that party comes to an end quite quickly.
Great. I mean, thank you. But if you want to talk about, South Africa is not up in the numbers, and if you talk about Africa in general, then that's a problem, because South Africa, in spite of all the challenges, is still the benchmark of what you say is where you want to get as a continent. Now, in terms of the regulatory framework, are you incentivized to move towards tourism? Because we say that tourism is everything is tourism. But again, are you giving some sort of incentive to be able to complement that?
No. I mean, I think tourism has been an ignored industry in South Africa completely. The Minister of Tourism job was the last place that you got put if you didn't have power in government. Fortunately, we now actually have a Minister of Tourism who's really dedicated to her job and working hard. But Derek Hanekom was good. In between, we've had some shockers. And it is not an industry where you get incentivization. If you take again a place like Cape Town, you've had a proliferation of apartment-style hotels. The driver was never an interest by anybody in tourism. There was a Section 12J tax incentive, which allowed people to effectively deduct their Cape Town holiday flat for tax, and it was definitely not what the Treasury was hoping to do, and so they canned that program. But that's how a lot of these apartment hotels got going, not by people who understood anything or had any interest in tourism. It was a tax structure in place. The balance of tourism, up until now in the GNU, was just a neglected industry. We are seeing light, and we're far away from actually getting incentivized to build this stuff, but at least we have a Home Affairs Department that is not interested in destroying inbound visitation, that actually is facilitating visas. The letter that went out to the consuls around the world to say you don't get to make up your own rules as to what a visa requirement is. All you need is passport and sufficient funds, etc. So there's light at that tunnel, in that government actively working against tourism is starting to at least stop. We wait and hope that they work for tourism, but not at the moment.
Okay. Now, in terms of the kind of infrastructure that you're looking at, in terms of lodges, staycation, that was very popular during the pandemic. Are you seeing some changes, some trends that tells you that you need to be moving towards that area, because people are now, and Cape Town or South Africa is introducing the digital nomad visa? Is this something that is impacting on how investors are looking at?
Yeah, I mean, the most interesting trend change to me is the move to, and I think it's a COVID consequence, the rich got richer and the poor suffered. And top-end, expensive product is shooting the lights out. And, I mean, we're not in the very ultra-high end. We had some, but I sold it during COVID to survive. But what you're finding is suddenly full-service, large-scale 4- and 5-star hotels with big conferencing is the absolute place to be, and is printing money. And your economy-style product and your middle-of-the-range stuff is suffering the most. And that's a sign of the underlying SA economy is still very weak, but where you've got access to the wealthy, particularly international inbound tourists, it's driving markets that work. So post-COVID, your bush lodges, your V&A waterfront, anything with a higher-end target market has done particularly well. It's not an area we would go into, as bush lodges, for example. I mean, they're like wine farms. You want to make money, you better inherit it because you can't afford to buy it. But the The part that's weak in the economy is your mid-market. South Africa is still a very expensive destination to get to. It's a fantastically cheap destination when you're here, but your flights are expensive. It's a long-haul destination to get to. So there is a shift. We have found that and that's why we're renovating a lot as opposed to new build. I can take an existing hotel and substantially upgrade it, like we've done with the Cullinan over the road here, at a fraction of a cost of what it'll cost me to put new build into the ground. And we probably will continue to focus on the top end more than on the bottom end.
From your experience as a finance person, what are the risk factors for people who want to invest into tourism-like project?
It's the delicacy of the industry. So tourism is long-term. Hotels, tourism, I think it's a great growth industry. You're going to, I've been in Southern Sun for 25 years, and I've just seen, if you spread it out, an almost relentless, continuous growth, but they're of extreme peaks and troughs. And it's quite a delicate industry. If you can't handle the trough, you're going to go bust quickly. And the death knell to the tourism industry is debt. If you're overgeared, you're probably not going to survive because it is cyclical. Cape Town at the moment, everyone's bulletproof. There will come a time when the rates are going to come down, when there's going to be oversupply. To be honest, that's when we do our best because we end up buying distressed stock. So anybody coming into it needs to realize that debt is probably the worst thing you can bring into your business.
Do the financial institutions think that it's worth their well to attract or court people who want to invest into the tourism project?
It's quite hard to get financing, particularly for large-scale tourism, and that's why it ends up being bigger companies like us who have capital, or the property companies where it's backed up by other assets, and the tourism part is part of a much bigger precinct approach that they have to their investments. Hotels are doing particularly well for the V&A and therefore Growth Point at the moment, but they lived either way, whether their entire existence is based on office and retail and commercial. The hotels is a nice swing on the side. I think individual financing is out there. On your smaller scale stuff, a lot of it is based on the individual's ability to achieve financing. But I don't think you'll find, actual hard real estate investment into hotels is pretty hard to find in South Africa. The only ones that have recently been doing big on this are the property companies, us, and companies like Casada, which is pretty much the only foreign inbound that we've seen bring big money into South Africa, when that's Qatari cash.
A question that was put, the last question, was around how you would prevent, or if you like, handle it well, the issue of the Barcelona issue. If you had such issue in Cape Town for your business, how are you going to do it? How are you going to work around it?
I think we're miles from it. That would be an absolute world-class problem to have to deal with. There's sort of talk about that, it's oversaturated tourism. We are a tiny little market at the end of a very, very big continent. So I don't think our numbers, I know SA Tourism likes to talk 10 million visitors. The vast majority of that is subsistence living, walking across the border. They have a big economic impact in South Africa, but they're not tourists as we think of tourists. So tourism is foreign inbound and Africa by air. And our numbers are so tiny that there's a lot of capacity that can be absorbed before we get to the real issue of tourism being a cause for people being displaced from the city and so on. A lot of our residential problems in Cape Town are the legacy of the spatial planning of apartheid that hasn't worked. There is a lot of land around. The city's actively releasing land. The concept that everybody gets to live in spitting distance of the V&A waterfront just because you're South African is also nonsense. I'd love to live in the centre of Paris. It's not going to happen. There are very few people in the world who can afford that. So the realism of it is that we need tourism to grow far, far more than we need to worry about gentrification or displacing people. We've got a big unemployed population. This industry can absorb that. That's way more problem than...
But, in terms of the perspective of how tourism is seen, and, largely if you speak to policymakers, some of them seeing tourism as a leisure, and obviously it's leisure, but if you talk about business, it's just put in different perspective. So if you say that you need a financing to build a convention center, it doesn't occur to the ordinary person, even for policymakers, that is part of tourism.
Absolutely,
So you tend to have an issue where sometimes it's seen as not as business, and tourism is seen some way, somehow as a leisure, activity.
No, it's
but
absolutely
then
true.
you have a leakage of how to measure and how to quantify the contribution of tourism to the economy. My final word is going to be, in terms of visa, I know it's out of your domain, but does it confront you as a business group with access, both air access and visa facilitation?
Yeah, I mean, visa was a disaster. It has had a substantial improvement, but it was. I give anecdotal examples of, people wanting to bring their family out here. It was actually one of the Casada people, and he was here. They just set up their business. He wanted to bring his family out here from France. French don't need visas, so that was fine. One person in the family was married to a Chinese national who still had a Chinese passport. That entire group never visited because she could not get a visa living in Paris, just because of admin. Now, it's a stupid little one example, but it definitely has an impact, and that has, we believe, been cleared. And the work that Westgrow and so on are doing on air access has been vital because people are short memories, but we got a lot of pink and blue aeroplanes at the airport, and if it wasn't for SAFAir, South Africa would have lost its ability to transport people by air in the country. We only had 2 bad debts in COVID, SAA and Comair. Every other travel agent paid their bills. The airlines went down. So you're missing Comair, which is the British Airways franchise, you're missing SAA, and you're missing Mango. Like, the air capacity is just not what it was. And that's why tourism numbers are still not back at pre-COVID levels. There's a lot of work to do, and Cape Town's a shining example of how it can work. But my hope is Cape Town pushes the rest of the country to better and don't get dragged down by it, because we're not seeing the same success elsewhere.
Any question from Marcel? Please go for it.
You just mentioned British Airways. Oh, sorry. I'll probably shout loud enough. I usually do. Just to let you know, I was on the flight out on Saturday, and it was overbooked. And I nearly didn't get on the flight. I was furious because I booked months ago and paid for premium economy. Anyway, I did get on because I did make a bit of a fuss. But there is only, you probably know this, but just one flight a day from the UK to Cape Town, and that's BA, and it's expensive.
Very.
It's expensive, and I know some of my colleagues who are based in the UK went via Dubai, went via Addis, went via even Amsterdam, but it is seriously expensive.
It is.
And if you book it like 2 weeks ahead, it's a massively expensive holiday. So I don't know if you can put pressure on
Yeah,
them.
I mean, the airlines are definitely price gouging, and they're not at capacity to what they were before. I mean, I'd say flight prices are probably triple what they were before COVID. And that's where South Africa is. When you hear it is extremely cheap. I mean, I've just been in Greece for 2 weeks. I was like horrified when you convert to rand. But to get here is expensive. And that's a big barrier to our inbound. So there needs to be a lot of pressure on getting additional capacity, and we need to do whatever we need to do. I know that Westgrow is working on it very hard, particularly for Cape Town. And if they hadn't had the direct air access policy that they had to get the direct flights that we've got into Cape Town and just relied on the Joburg leg recovering, the Cape Town boom would not be where it is at the moment. So it is a real problem. That I guess in the end market will sort itself out. You need the airlines to go back to competing with each other. They kind of learned not to do that during COVID. But at some point, they will also put more plans on.
But to be fair again, to say that as well, post the pandemic, and as people said, I mean, there were going to be travel revenge. It's been very expensive, from the source market. Even with local flight, if you want to leave from Madrid to, let's say, Paris, it's not costing you a minimum of 300, 400, euros. So I guess it's something that we need to look at in Africa. South Africa is doing better generally. It's not the best, but I think if you look at the continental level, it has a lot of capacity coming through. Marcel, thank you so much for your time, and
Thank you.
we learn a lot.
Thank you.